I have always wanted a Garratt Loco to run on my narrow gauge layout, but most of the available types are out of my reach. They are either too expensive or too complicated for me to build, as most of them are based on brass kits. So when I saw this resin kit from MT3D, I was really delighted, as it seemed to me to be the ideal compromise that would allow me to build a working Garratt Loco. So you can imagine my disappointment when, after ordering it, I received a package with both of the tender units broken into 2 or 3 pieces. This was solely due to poor packaging. They were wrapped with only a small amount of bubble wrap, which in turn was not secured by any form of sticky tape. So when I did open my package, the units were basically just rattling around inside it unprotected. When I informed the vendor about this, he said that replacement parts could be sent if necessary, but the simplest solution was just to superglue everything back together. I agreed to try this, but reserved the right to ask for replacements at a later date if needed. So we'll see how that worked out by fast forwarding to later in the build. The water tender section had a clean break, so I was able to glue that back together, and then the chassis fitted back in it perfectly. And after some adjustment, I was able to get this part running well. However, the coal bunker section was not such an easy repair due to the small components being chipped and cracked during transit. This meant that I had to rebuild the unit and use extra plastic and filler to hold the small delicate parts together, which then altered the layout and dimensions of this coal tender. I was unwilling to start filing away at this unit as it was so delicate. My only other option was to use a Dremel and gradually file down the chassis to get the best fit possible. This then led to the chassis being in slightly the wrong place and making it much more difficult to obtain a free running unit. Although I bought this resin kit last summer, I didn't actually start the build until Christmas, once I had obtained all the necessary parts for it. When I realised that the coal tender unit was going to be a problem due to the bad packaging and the damage it had suffered during transit, I asked for a replacement unit. I've now been told by the vendor that if he can find me a replacement unit, he will send me one, but that was over a month ago. As they advertise a resin print time of 5 to 6 days, I find this puzzling, but I'm still waiting and hoping that I will get my replacement unit. The Loco resin kit comes in 3 pieces: the main Loco body unit, and then a coal tender unit, plus a front water tender section. Also included is a pack of accessories, which is detailing for the cab roof and the cylinder unit, plus some other small parts. You need 2 Graham Farish N-scale 08 diesel shunters to power the Loco. And then the next set of components all come from RT models, and they are the connecting rods, the coupling rods and the slide bar units. I also bought a set of keeper plates which are designed to improve the running. If you do fit the keeper plates, you're then able to add on to them the brackets for the pony truck assemblies, so you can replace the dummy wheels with real ones. I ordered everything together at the same time to try and cover all eventualities, but I'm not sure I'll fit these parts. As I run DCC, I needed 2 decoder units, so I ordered 2 of the same type, so that I would get equal performance from both chassis. I've also got some appropriate decals from End & Transfers, plus a set of works plates from the Light Valley Railway Company, which will be waiting for me next time I return to England. The next step is to prepare the Class 08 diesel chassis for use, and you do this by first removing the 4 tiny screws which release the top. And once you've got the top out of the way, you can then unscrew the footplate unit, which also releases the brake gear assemblies at the same time, leaving you with a clean chassis ready for use. The next step was to remount the coupling rods to the correct size so that they would fit neatly on the crank pin arms of the Loco. We then needed to remove the factory fitted coupling rods by removing the tiny locating pins holding them in place, hopefully without losing any of them in the process. As you can see, I used a plastic bag for this to try and ensure that none of them went missing. Then, with the aid of some tacky glue and a magnifying glass, I was able to fit the new coupling rods and their pins back onto the chassis. So the next step was to remount the connecting rods, the slide bars and the crosshead units, together with their associated washers, with a 0.7mm jeweler's drill. The connecting rods and crosshead units were then assembled using the pins provided, with a tiny dab of solder on the end to secure them. The slide bars were bent to shape and reinforced at the corner with a tiny bit of solder, as I found them to be very fragile and prone to break without this addition. So, having previously prepared the chassis by gluing in place the cylinder blocks, I was now able to fit the slide bars and the connecting rods in place. These went into the appropriate slots in the cylinder block, and the final job to do here was to remove the crank pin the furthest away from the cylinder blocks and replace it with the connecting rod and its extended crank pin. I wasn't able to film all of this because it was extremely fiddly work and had to be done under a magnifying lamp. But now we can see the completed chassis assembled, so let's take it for a test run. I repeated this process with the second chassis, so we've now got 2 smooth running 08 chassis. So here are some photos of the Garratt build at the moment, and as you can see it's nearly finished. But my main problem is that although the chassis on their own run freely, the one located in the coal tender unit does not, because of the damage it received during postage. It's possible that I could repair this tender unit given time, but I also risk damaging it even further due to its delicate nature and ruining the whole build. And given that the resin kit costs £80 and the total build with all the extras included is around the £350 mark, it's something I'm not willing to risk. So there will be a follow-up video once I've finished detailing the Garratt, and hopefully by then I will have received a replacement unit and can report on a smooth running finished Loco.